Growing up as a kid, one of the things that I can remember doing so often that was a central part to our family was hunting. We always loved to be outdoors, being together. And one of the main things that I remember from my childhood was when I shot my first dove. I remember it just like it was yesterday. I was 10 years old and I was missing everything I was shooting at that time. It was my very first dove hunt. And all of a sudden I saw these 3 doves coming from my right. And I was so determined to shoot one. And finally I remember aiming, pulling the trigger, and seeing one fall. And I was obviously super excited. But probably the thing that excited me the most was seeing my dad off in the distance, throwing his arms up in the air, screaming out of excitement because his youngest son just shot his first dove. Ever since then, I've been hooked on dove hunting, and I've been hooked on being outdoors and hunting and fishing in general. So today I'm going to specifically talk about the sport of dove hunting. To do that, I'm going to start with the historical background of the sport, then how it was refined in the 20th century, and what dove hunting is like today. So I'm going to start with the historical background. From the Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine article, Legends, Lore, and Legacy. Before dove hunting began, people hunted other birds. These birds included pheasants, ducks, geese, turkeys, prairie chickens, even pigeons. The difference in these birds with dove is that, one, they're bigger, and so they're easier to shoot, and 2, they were all white meat, whereas opposed to dove is dark meat. Dove hunting began at the end of the 19th century when the passenger pigeon, the passenger pigeon was becoming extinct from being so heavily hunted. When people found out that dove hunting was actually a lot more fun because they were smaller and harder to hit, and that the meat actually tasted better, the population of the sport really began to rise, and it officially became the sport of dove hunting. Now I'm going to tell you about how the sport was refined in the 20th century. First of all, quail hunting was the most popular thing to do at this point in time. A couple reasons why. One is because quail hunting used dogs. It was a lot more exciting, and for example, to hunt quail with dogs, the dog would run back and forth, smell the quail, and flush them out, or in other words, they'd jump at them to make them fly so that you can shoot them. Dove hunting, on the other hand, you would sit in a stool in a field and shoot a dove, and the only time you'd have a dog is if the dog went and got it and brought it back to you. Quail hunting requires a lot more quickness with the shotgun because the quail's flying very low to the ground a lot faster, and physical endurance from doing all the walking trying to find the quail with the dog. Dove hunting actually in the middle of the 20th century or the end of the 19th century was actually considered a fat man sport because like I said, you'd sit on a stool, and if you had a dog, you didn't even have to get up, it'd go get it for you and bring it back to you. When it became so popular, or started to increase, the state of Texas began to implement regulations on hunting. Some of these regulations included a calendared season, which would start on September 1st and go actually all the way through the new year. There was a season limit that you could shoot of birds, and that was only 15 total. And you also had to have a plug in your shotgun, and the plug only allows you to hold a maximum of 3 shells because it makes it a little bit more even, so you can't just shoot 5 shells at one bird. It makes it a little bit unfair for the birds. So now I'm going to tell you about how it has become so popular in Texas and what it's like today. According to Ronnie R. George from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, he says that each year over 400,000 licenses are bought so people can hunt dove in Texas. One of the reasons why it's so popular is because it's such a good beginner sport. You can have kids who've never hunted before go out and you can sit with them. You're not going to put a high-power rifle in their hands because comparatively it's not nearly as safe as a shotgun. It's very much a group activity. Like I said, we had so much family time when I was a kid, dove hunting and just spending time with the family outdoors. You can also go as a group of 5, 10, or 15 people even, sit in a field and just enjoy each other's company while going dove hunting. That being said, it is a lot of fun, but there needs to be an emphasis on safety first and abiding by the laws and regulations that are put in place. Those laws and regulations have gradually been refined, like I said, from the middle of the 20th century to now. Some of those are, instead of a 15 bird per limit for the entire season, it's now 15 birds per hunt, and you can only have 45 total in your possession, meaning in your freezer and what you have.